Everyone, from me, Brent Graham of goodforthegame.co.za. What a weekend of rugby we've got ahead of us. We're going to be talking about it on the handicap tonight. Rugby chat that matters. We've got Investec Champions Cup round of 16 action. We'll touch on a bit of Challenge Cup, not a lot of betting after that. And we'll also talk Super Rugby week 8. We're going out at 9:15, a bit later than normal. I actually quite like it. It gives me a little bit more time to get organised at the end of the day. Well, we've got two guests joining us, but only one in studio at the moment. And it's Pablo joining us from Spain. Pablo, great to have you back on the show, mate.
Thank you very much. Good evening.
Excellent. Well, I'm going to toast you with my glass of water. What have you got in your hand there?
That's
beer. What's the brand name there, Pablo?
Here is Mau. It's a Spanish one.
Okay. Yeah. And
pretty average.
Are you a regular? Do you change your brands, or do you stick to that brand?
At home, I drink that one, but when I'm in a pub, I drink another one that is called Alhambra. You know the historic place, Alhambra in Granada, in the south of Spain?
Okay, now I don't know it, but I'm pretty bad at that type of stuff.
That one is better than this one.
Excellent. Well, hopefully one day I can join you for a beer there. So we've got Nathan joining us as well to talk a bit of Super Rugby. But what I'm going to suggest, Pablo, is but while we wait for Nathan, instead of starting off on Super Rugby, first of all, to welcome a few of the boys in the live chat. We've got Peter Paul, we've got JJ Bauer, we've got 2M Systems who've joining us there. But what I'm going to suggest is we talk a little bit of Challenge Cup, because we don't have a lot of betting on Challenge Cup. But I do, let's run through the games. If there's anything that catches your eye there. On Friday night, we do have betting on these two games, and I'll bring it up now. We've got Edinburgh against the Lions. That's at 9 o'clock tomorrow night. Any thoughts on that?
Actually, with lineups and even with my before lineups prediction, I had an expected 12-13 points advantage for Edinburgh, so nothing in the handicap. But I think it could be unders that much.
Right, possibly unders there. We don't have a point down there yet. A Toulouse up against Bath. Here we got the home team plus 7.5.
In that match, I go with Bath, but I will wait for team points, because Bath will go even without the absence they have, because there's no Rochelle, there's no Lawrence, there's no De Glanville, Barbary, Stewart, but still they have a very strong team. And Poe is going with not the second string, but almost the second string, because there is a lot of absence for Poe. They lost last week really heavily against Toulouse with the first string by 45 points. And I was with Poe in the plus 30, so it was a loss for me. But with this lineup, I think Bath can score big. So I will wait for points, because I think they can score 40 points easily.
Okay, we'll wait for that. Just to welcome some of the other guys joining us. Werner's here, David Furlong, and Reverend, of course. Hey, morning there from New Zealand. Always enjoy it when the overseas boys tune in for breakfast there as well. Right, let's run through the other games. Now, we don't have any odds for these at the moment, but you can give us your thoughts. Pablo, Bayonne against the Bulls.
With no news, because I didn't find any news about Bulls composition or squad. I actually didn't have time to check it, but I think Bayonne this year they are flying really high. They are in a position they are not used to in top 14. They are in the playoffs, really high, because they are really strong in Bayonne. But also they are delivering away. But my expected line here is 4 or 5 points advantage to Bayonne. I don't think it could be a high scoring match. Actually, I have like 45, 46 points, because Bayonne, they defend really well at home. They concede like 16, 17 points average in top 14. For me, little advantage to Bayonne, but depends on the Bulls. If they are for this match, it could be like one scoring game. But if they are not to, it's like last year Bayonne against Exeter that they won like by 30 something. I mean, they have a team to. I mean, if Bulls they don't want to this competition, Bayonne can win really big with this team.
All right, yeah, we'll have to have a look at team selections there. Montpellier against Gloucester. I imagine the French team will start favourites here, Pablo.
Like the other match, but a little bit more over for me. It's like above 50, 51, 52 points with little advantage to Montpellier. But Montpellier, they are really regular. Last week, they won in the last play against Stade Francais at home. When they opened like 10 points, 12 points favorites before match against Stade Francais, that is, I think it's the worst away team in top 14, and they almost lost at home. So imagine it's a really irregular team. So I think this match can be overs. No, even with little advantage to Montpellier, but I think Gloucester can. I think Gloucester will feel a strong team, and Montpellier may not feel the strongest team they can feel, because they are in the top 14 fight for playoff and to avoid relegation, because this year is really close, the difference between playoffs and relegation. So I think Gloucester are more focused in this competition than Montpellier.
Right, Connacht up against Cardiff. URC clash this one?
Almost draw. I have like little advantage to Connacht, like 2 points, 3 points, no more. I think both teams, they will go for this match, because the fight for the playoffs in URC are really I don't know how to say it. I mean, they will have. It will be very difficult for both teams to finish in the playoffs. So that gives you the option for Champions Cup next year. So I think both teams will go strong, because it's maybe the best option for both to play Champions Cup next year. So in my opinion, little advantage to Connacht. Little advantage.
Slight edge to the home team there. Perpignan against Racing 92. There's, of course, an French clash. What are we thinking here, Pablo?
I think here both teams are they don't want this competition. Perpignan, it's in the fight for relegation. They sneaked a draw last week in Van. They lost by 10, like 5 minutes before the end of the match. So for them, there was a really successful result. And Racing, they are now playing better, getting better results than at the beginning of the competition. But I think both teams are not interested in this match. So for me, this one is the match to avoid this week. I mean, okay, I don't have an opinion here about this match.
I mean, when both teams are trying not to win the game, you never know what we're going to get.
If I can bet for both teams not interested in winning, I would bet for that one.
Right. Well, we got 2 Sunday games. One of them featuring a South African side, the Sharks. Oh boy, the Sharks! Gee whiz, did they let me down again last week? I wasn't actually on them as such, but I was hoping for some points in Durban. 17 in total in the match against Leinster, and they lost the game. Leon against the Sharks. Thoughts there, Pablo, on that one?
I think this could be a high scoring match. Actually, it's the highest scoring match for me with my numbers is Stade Toulousain Sale Sharks, and the second one is this one, like 55, 56 points. But depends if Lyon are interested. French teams are not really interested in this competition until the final.
Okay, and the final.
So depends on Lyon, but it could be overs, this one.
Right, overs, look out for that. Final game before we get into Super Rugby. Ospreys against the Scarlets, the Welsh derby. Ospreys have quite impressed me. Of late, Pablo, what can we look out for you?
Here, for me, little advantage to Ospreys, like 4 or 5 points, no more. Around 46, 47, 48 points, no more than that. But it's the other it's like the other match between Perpignan and Racing, maybe the match to avoid.
100%. Well, he's joining us now from Auckland in New Zealand. It's the Moss Man. Nathan, great to have you on the show, mate. Please, you could make it in a bit of a hectic morning lifting kids around there.
Oh yeah, it's the weather is an absolute shambles here at the moment as well. So of course, no one can drive as soon as it starts to rain, which makes it It's getting around pretty difficult. No, it's extremely windy and rainy here, but like weirdly warm, like still around sort of 19, 20 degrees, which might feed into the first game we're going to talk about, I think.
Excellent. Well, we're going to get into that. Just to mention, anybody who's watching the show from Johannesburg can tell you as well, absolutely torrential rain here for a couple of hours earlier this afternoon. We really have had a lot as well. I don't think there's any games taking place in Joburg this week, but if they were, it would certainly be potential unders, right? But let's get into Super Rugby. And Nathan, we'll kick off with you. We got the first game on. This is South African times. It's 8:05 tomorrow morning. We got the Chiefs up against the Reds. I'll just bring up the betting here at Bet Exchange. We've got a handicap of -12.5 for home team. This is, of course, a top of the table clash. Reds actually top at the moment, and the Chiefs second, -12.5, and a points line of 55.5. What have you got for us first thing on a Friday in South Africa?
Yeah, this line's been pretty stable all week. I think there might have been 10.5 kicking around for a short time, maybe on Monday. But I think the weather's clearly going to be a factor here. It's I think the weather in Hamilton's just sort of an hour and a half, 2 hours down the road. It's raining sort of cats and dogs all day today. The theory, I think, is that it'll sort of tail off leading up to kickoff and maybe during the game, but even then you can't sort of necessarily count on that. But drainage on modern ground's pretty good. So, I don't know exactly how much of a factor it's going to be, but I think it'll play some part in it. And as I said, it's not necessarily just the wind and the rain. It is, I looked at the forecast and they were saying it's going to be sort of 19, 20 degrees around kickoff time. So the difference between the nighttime temperature and the day temperature is it's been very stable. So it's probably humid. Has all the makings, I guess, of an unders game. The thing that I always keep in mind there was actually a Drua Chiefs game in Hamilton about 2 years ago, and it sort of opened my eyes, I guess, to modern teams. I think, and how good they can play in the wet, because the Chiefs were kind of outstanding. I don't know. In the NFL, when they're trained, they know it's going to be a rain game. They'll have buckets of water out on the field, and the quarterback will dunk the ball in the water as part of the practices, so that they just get used to the conditions. I wonder whether rugby teams are kind of doing the same these days, because they're pretty good in the wet. So roundabout way, I guess, of saying that, I think I am on the under for this when it was 57.5, but I will be keeping a close eye on what the conditions are actually like closer to kickoff, and it might be one of these ones where when the TV coverage comes on, you have a quick look at it and see what it actually looks like in reality. Like if you can see surface water in these things, it's kind of a no-brainer. But it might be that things are fine. So I do have a view on the handicap as well, but maybe I'll take a breath there and I'll let somebody else say something.
Yeah, okay, I'll come back to you on that one. Pablo, just an interesting thing that Nathan mentioned about conditions. One thing, I always say no one looks at conditions like a rugby punter. They show the guys getting off the bus, and I'm looking at the floor to see if the rain's hitting the floor. I'm looking at the clouds. And same thing when they run onto the field. You can often see on the side of the field if it's really, really been wet. I also looked at the 57.5 when I was actually updating the blog, but I never moved quickly enough. I see it's down to 55.5 now, but I'm also leaning unders here. Pablo, your thoughts?
I was thinking about the unders, but I was late for the 57. So I didn't bet there because my numbers suggest that line should be around 60, but didn't take into account that the weather will be not awful, but it will be a little bit of rain. I think it will rain in the first half, maybe not in the second half. So I think this may be in live bet at halftime. Depends on. I will be ready for to see the TV before the match, like 5 minutes before. If it's raining, maybe I will wait to make my bet. But I was leaning overs here at 55 or 54. But depends on the weather. It will be wet and humid. Not a lot of rain, a lot of wind. That's not too much. But if it's dry in the second half and the line is below 55, I think I will go overs, but at halftime.
Yeah, assess conditions. Yeah, seeing the good for the game forum. Most of the guys on unders. Chiefy backing the trend there. He fancies the points to flow. I actually hear what Nathan said. Definitely teams have improved in the rain. And in fact, Henrik Swart will tell you the undertaker. I mean, Durban is one of those grounds where sometimes they score more points in the rain when it's not that hot humidity, but it's actually a little bit wet. So, yeah, interesting that. Keep an eye on that one. Before we go into the next game, now, Nathan, you've got a view on the cap here.
I do, yeah. It's funny, though, just when you were talking about rugby punters and weather, you know, and I've been in situations where I knew that there was a strong wind blowing from a certain direction. You know, I'm on Google Maps looking at the ground, you know, like trying to figure out what orientation it is. And then when the teams run out of the tunnel and go left or right, you're trying to figure out which side of the ground is the camera on so that you know who's going sort of north and who's going south. And like, yeah, it's interesting. And, you know, you're trying to do all this, like, you know, 30 seconds before kickoff, you know, so you're sort of scrambling. But these are things that we do. I think coming into this week, I probably would have been looking Chiefs. But when the teams came out, like I'm now on the Reds at plus 12.5. And I think the Reds they'll definitely be better than last week. I don't know if you saw this game, but it was the line out throwing. It's obviously hard to tell if it's the hooker or if it's the opposition that are responsible. But at one point, I think the Brumbies had won. Sorry, not Brumbies. The Force had won more lineouts off the Reds' throw than the Reds had. It was like Asiata, the hooker, and Darcy Swain was just picking off all of his lineouts. Like there were times during the game where I was rewinding to look at whose throw it was because it was such a perfect catch, and you know I was thinking it was almost comical. So anyway, he's not starting, so they've got some guys back. I think if it is a bit rainy, there are some big boys in the forwards for the Reds, and I think they would be quite well suited towards kind of grinding it out. I think mauling with some of these guys back, the likes of Fessler. They've picked Hodgman and Tumunga Allen at prop, who are both big dudes. So it's a pretty sizable sort of forward pack, which could be, as I said, quite well suited to playing in potentially wet conditions. And the truth is, with this current Chiefs team, with the players that they're missing in the forward pack, it's kind of their back three that are actually, along with McKenzie, is their strength, and obviously in wet conditions, that strength is kind of negated somewhat.
All right, so the Reds there on the plus. Let's stick with you for the next game then, Nathan. It's Moana Pacifica up against the Waratahs. I just want to bring it up so I can find it nice and easily after the show. We've had a bit of movement here. Waratahs actually open slight favourites. I see now Moana Pacifica minus 1.5. I actually priced Pacifica, I think, minus 4.5 favourites here. So not surprised to see the move. It hasn't gone quite as far as my line yet, but generally seems to be a bit of sentiment around for Pacifica. What are your views on this one?
There were a few games this week, this being one of them, where when I sort of sat back and tried to just handicap it in my head and come up with a number that I couldn't really decide who should be favourite. And I think it's one of the few times where I've actually run my own numbers and come out with Moana as a favourite. I'm sure it's happened in the past, maybe, a game against the Drua, like years ago, but I didn't sort of recall it ever happening. So, it's quite eye-opening that that's where we are now. And I think quite rightly. So I took Moana on the money line at about even money. So, I don't love that, but I do think it just kind of made sense. And part of the reason I don't love it is, I guess, it's just an unusual position for them to be in terms of being favoured in a game against, like a reasonably fancy team. And I thought they might bring back few guys maybe in the front row, but they've obviously stuck with the guys that got the job done, who are potentially lesser names. And I just had a little bit of pause at the fact that Miracle Whailangi's not there, because they do voting for Super Rugby kind of player of the match, and then they roll it forward into a player of the year kind of calculation, and he's right up there. So he's had a great season. And he's missing, I think, with a hamstring strain, and he's been a standout player. Like, obviously doesn't get the headlines like Artie does, but he's very, really important to them. So I think, long story short, I think the line is correct where it is currently.
100%. Johan Esthuizen coming in, Tars 1 to 12. He likes that option, and Johan will no doubt be giving us his weekly treble as well towards the end of the show. just quickly before I move on to Pablo there, Nathan, Moana Pacifica, this game, is it taking place at the North Harbour Stadium?
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
And weather-wise, I mean, I know it's on Saturday, but weather-wise, anything, because 66.5 is a points line in dry conditions in this game. I'm actually thinking overs, but what are we expecting weather-wise, do you know?
I haven't seen the weather, but I have heard people talking about it and saying it was supposed to be okay.
Okay, yeah. I actually quite like the overs here. Pablo, any thoughts on this game?
Yeah, here weather will be perfect. Like 20 degrees, 70% humidity. So yeah, no rain, almost no wind. Here I'm in Moana's camp. I bet on Moana's draw no bet 1 unit, like events, 1.9, something like that. Low confidence because it's Moana Pacifica. They can last year they won, if I remember correctly, 27-10 or something like that by 15, 17 points, something like that. And there's no Failagi, but I think still the lineup they feel it's pretty nice. Tom Ofelau is back. They are playing well. I don't rate Waratahs really high away from home. They are in that position because they are delivering at home, not away. And in my books, Moana should be 5 points favorite. So for me, just 1 unit. And about points, I have like around 55, 56 points. So with that number, I should go under 66. But with that conditions that will be dry and no wind and 20 degrees, I prefer not to bet in that line. But with the method, I should be on the unders camp at 66. I think it's really high, that line.
Right. So your model's throwing up a much lower number. And sorry, I heard myself echo there. I thought it was someone else speaking. But yeah, I'll have to consider it. Look, this game kicks off at 3:05 on Saturday morning South African time. So I don't think I have to give this game too much thought. And I'd like to think I'm not getting home at that time and switch on the TV, and I'm certainly not waking up for it. So I'm probably going to miss this game. Let's move on. Another early start for South Africans who, and I've always loved, by the way, over the years, getting up for Super Rugby. I've spelled it wrong there, but it's a Fijian Drua against the Crusaders. This game is 25-6 in South Africa in the morning. Pablo, I'll let you lead us off here. We've got a +3.5 handicap Fijian Drua, and 60.5 is the total points line. This game taking place in Suva, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, here I'm in the Drua camp. I put 2 units in the Drua, but at 5.5 plus 5.5 when it was a little bit higher than now. Nothing on the points. I have around 54, 55 points expected, but it's like, Drua, they can score a lot and concede a lot in rainy and humid conditions, and it can be like a 30 points match in really dry conditions. So nothing in the points market for me, but I'm in the Drua camp. I like the lineup. Not only their lineup, but also I don't like too much the Crusaders lineup. There's no Preston. I think they are the top performer this year for Crusaders. You see what happened last week against Moana. No Preston, no Havili as well, and they lost at home against Moana Pacifica. And also no Scott Barrett, no Cullen Grace, no Tamati Williams. I think there's a lot of absence for Crusaders. Last year they lost last year, 2 years ago, they lost, or last year in Fiji, 2010, something like that. And I think Fiji should be favorites here. With these lineups, for me, they should be favorites. So for me,
value there.
5.5, 2 units, medium confidence.
Right, Drua there for Pablo. Let's see if Nathan agrees with him on this one.
Yeah, I totally agree. I was also on the Drua at 5.5 and a little bit of 6.5 when that was kicking around. I think this is a true coin flip. I've got the Drua by sort of 0.5 point. So yeah, it's a coin flip in those situations. take the +3.5. I think all the absences that Pablo mentioned are big. I think Havili especially was a big loss last week. And the other thing about that lineup is you've got Sevu Reece playing at centre, who I don't recall ever playing there. And he's certainly not a centre. And I think that's an unusual selection. And I don't think that's it's just a strange sort of situation. And I'm not quite sure what the thinking is there, but anyway, on board with the Drua.
Right, yeah, very interesting. Playing centre. I mean, he's been around for years, and I can't ever recall him going in there. Right, let's move on to the Blues up against the Hurricanes. I guess perhaps together with the Chiefs and the Reds, joint match of the weekend. Maybe we got the Blues here favourites at -4.5 and a points line of 56.5. This game taking place Saturday morning South African time. And we know it's raining there at the moment, Nathan, but are the prospects for this game that it might clear up?
I think so. Yeah, I think it's going to be better. Obviously, it's just the other side of the bridge from the Moana game. So if the weather was good there, then I think this one will be the same. But again, when I talked earlier about the games which I thought were kind of a toss-up, this was one of them. I think in terms of who'd be favoured, I think a lot of people will be excited about Barrett's return, but at the end of the day, he's just one player, and also I don't necessarily know that he is or was gelling with the way they wanted to play. I think I brought that up like a long time back before he got injured. So if the thinking is that they're going to revert to this kind of physical, forward-oriented team that they were last year, and then you bring him in who doesn't sort of want to play that kind of game at all. I don't necessarily think that those things jive. So again, I think this is a coin flip, and in the coin flip, you take the +4.5 all day long. I think that although there's been talk about the players that the Blues have got back, they're missing Tongafasi. I don't like the look of their props, especially up against what the Hurricanes are going to bring. And the Hurricanes have also got Tossi, who I rate pretty highly, coming off the bench as well. So, yeah, it's starting to look more like, and I said this last week, getting the band back together. It's starting to look like the Hurricanes of last year, whereas the Blues, I think, are still a bit underpowered compared to where they were and the way that they wanted to play last year. So, yeah, I think, as I said, I think this is a coin flip. And so I'll take the +4.5.
Right, Pablo, bringing you in on this game. Also, just to mention the points line, you're 56.5. I'm actually leaning unders here. I see this as one of those situations where you've got potentially two teams desperate for the win, and things might get a little bit scrappy at one point. Always a bit nervous going unders when New Zealand teams play each other, because they really do play a great brand of rugby. What have you got for us here, Pablo?
I agree with you and with Nathan as well. But I'm at Hurricanes +6 Asian at 1.7. I found in PS3838 just one unit, because both teams are really regular. For me, it's like a coin toss. Even little advantage to Hurricanes. In my numbers, it's like 1-2 points advantage to Hurricanes. Even with Barrett back, Blues are really regular this season. Hurricanes as well. But in this situation, you should go with the underdog. But just one unit at +6 Asian for Hurricanes. And I was leaning unders as well, because I have like around 51, 52 points. Both teams desperate to win, and they, especially the Blues, they are with one win in the last 6 matches, so they are more desperate than Hurricanes. But just for the moment, the Hurricanes +6, one unit, and maybe another unit to the under 56, 57.
Right, I'm going to stick with you for the last Super Rugby game of the weekend. Western Force up against the Highlanders. I can tell you here we're sitting with a handicap. Western Force -3.5 and a points line in Perth of 59.5. And I can tell you, just before coming on air, I did have a look at the Good for the Game forum, and Southpaw, who has been in cracking form, makes the overs here. I think it was the overs is a best bet. I'll have to double check that. But Pablo, I'll let you kick off on this one.
Yeah, I cannot believe myself, but I agree with that overs. I'm in the over. I'm in the over 55.8, 58.5. Sorry. I found in my book is the 58.5. Nothing in the handicap because I think 4 should be a little bit favorites, like 3-4 points. Nothing there. But my numbers suggest that the line should be in the mid-60s. So I cannot believe myself going overs with Force and Highlanders, but I went overs here 2 units on the over 58.5.
Right, so Southpaw they're taking similar bet 57.5. He took 5 to 6 on 0.83 to 1. Also expecting a line in the mid 60s. So that leads us into Nathan for his final comments of Super Rugby. Unless Pablo, you got anything else to add?
No, nothing else.
Good. Okay, Nathan, are you going to rubber stamp the points here, or any thoughts on the handicap?
This is a game I'm actually going to stay away from because I think, like, handicap wise, I have it right on the current number, and I could not honestly go either side with any kind of confidence. Based on what I've seen recently, I've probably been one of the Highlanders' biggest detractors over the last few weeks, and even last week, and I don't consider this a bad beat, and luck does kind of even out. But the truth is that they were 12 points down, with a minute to play, and the Brumbies really just needed to secure the restart and clear, and the Highlanders don't cover another cap, and it didn't happen. But as I said, these things go in swings and roundabouts. But the thing that was weird about it for me is that the Highlanders, they were different than they had been in previous weeks, but just bad in a different way. So, like in previous weeks, they'd been able to retain position but didn't have a cutting edge. And in this particular game against the Brumbies, they had no position but looked really dangerous every time they got the ball. So it was kind of like all over the place, like in terms of the way that they want to play and how they're going to come out. So, yeah, I would stay well clear of this one. And I can understand why you'd be a bit nervous about doing overs with these are probably the 2 biggest traditional unders teams, like in recent years in the competition. So yeah, I can understand why you'd be a bit nervous about that. But as I said, just one that I'm quite happy to just stay clear of.
Right, and that game is taking place at 10:35 on Saturday morning, South African time. We're going to get into the Champions Cup now. Nathan, you and I didn't get a chance to speak to you, obviously, before the show. Have you had a look at Champions Cup? Do you want to get involved? If you wanted to, if you don't want to stay on the show, that's also cool. Whatever you want to do. Have you had a little bit of a look at it?
Oh, I had a little bit of a look, but only because I put money on Toulon and Glasgow, like when the lines immediately came out, just by eyeballing them, they just looked wrong, not because of any kind of analysis or something. And of course, the Toulon number's gone nuts since then. I think I took 6.5 on them, 6.5 on Glasgow. Glasgow at 9.5. I think Toulon are at 18.5 or something. So I'll just put those tickets in the back pocket, and I don't think I'll necessarily need to get involved in anything else. There's some ridiculous kind of line value involved there. So so I don't really have anything else to add. Although it was interesting because I did discover, like, even on these Champions Cup games, that the bidding limits are probably about half of what they are in Super Rugby when you first hit those opening numbers, because I always try to stay under the number that I know gets referred to Trader. But I don't refer to Trader straight away, like on the Champions Cup bet. So, like, I kind of by accident discovered that what the max is on there. Always trying to stay off the radar of those traders. You never want someone looking at your account.
Yeah, you don't want to be on the radar. And then it's interesting because I know you and I have discussed it a lot in the past. It's a lot to do, I suppose, with the competitions and the uncertainty of teams' selections and that. So the bookies themselves, I mean, who can blame them? I guess they trade carefully. But, as you say, hope to get out of the radar. Well, I'm going to run through the games. You're welcome to chime in. Or, as I say, if you've got meetings to get to, whatever, then I'll run through with Pablo, no problem. Let's get into the first game, the Northampton Saints against Clermont. And Pablo, I'll come to you on this one. This one's Friday night, 9 o'clock South African time. And we got -8.5 the Saints here at home. And I can tell you that I saw it, I think it was Russ Petty on Twitter. I saw on X, I saw it stat, something like 22 out of the last 24 matches in the Champions Cup, like sort of knockouts or the round of 16 or whatever, are won by the home team. And if you look down the line there, you'll see that every single home team is a favorite. What have you got for us in the opener?
Yeah, here I think there's no value in any line. Northampton should win this by 9-10 points, in my opinion. They go strong. They come from a little last 2 matches in Premiership were really disappointing for them, especially 2 weeks ago at home against Leicester Tigers. They didn't score a point. They lost 33. It was really disappointing. Last week was less disappointing than the week before, but still disappointing. They are this season. I think they are the 8th in the log, so they are not in the run not for the title as well, but not even in the playoffs, because they are 10, 12 points below that, and teams in Premiership are starting to earn points in the top positions. So maybe they should focus on the Champions Cup. They go strong. I like the team they field, but also Clermont won. There's no Jano, but it's Jano, the Clermont number 9. That's a big absence for Clermont. I cannot understand, because the line was -10 and now is -8. Clermont, they go strong, but Jano is a big absence for Clermont. I don't like Bessie at 9. For me, it's really slow. A really slow player, really slow in the rack. Jano, it's a faster player. Clermont score more points when he's on the field. Not sure. I didn't bet anything in this match. Maybe the under 53. I have around 49-50 points in this match. Conditions where will be good, like not really hot, only 7-8 degrees, but it will be humid, like almost 90%. That's humid enough for me to go unders. But I will wait. If I bet here, my bet would be under 53, but nothing for the moment. Nothing in the handicap as well. I cannot trust Northampton right now, and also Clermont.
Well, that's the only Friday night game. Nathan, I'm going to come to you on this one first up, because you did mention you took the early line. I think it was about -6.5. I know the Admiral, I saw he was on that as well. But you mentioned it was more of a gut feel for you. So you didn't, at the time you got involved there, was it a gut feel that Saracens would rotate, or was it more just a gut feel as that this line's wrong? I think Toulon are more than 6 points better than Saracens when you took the bet.
I just thought it looked wrong. Yeah, it was the same with the Glasgow line. I just thought it looked wrong, and it wasn't until later that I spotted that they were the resting. So yeah, which I suppose the most interesting thing about that is that it just shows you that you've got probably like a group of bookmakers at Bet365 who are the guy that does the rugby is probably doing squash and table tennis and about 3 other things, and he's not reading the news about restings and all that, because it was like all over BBC. Like, I think everybody kind of knew in advance that this was a possibility that this was going to happen. So yeah, it just goes to show that you just, whoever he is probably just brings up the rugby spreadsheet, minus is this number by this number, and says, okay, this is the opening line.
Well, I can tell you, we got the same guys doing the Varsity Cup trading here in South Africa. Historically, I've been terrible at Varsity Cup. This year, absolutely, well, I won't say cleaning up, because I can't get big bets down on the Varsity Cup, but doing pretty well. But there was a game on Monday night, and it was the Northwest, the Eagles, or the Picker as they called, and they were -15.5. They opened. The line eventually started -23.5. They won. I can't remember what the other team scored, but I think it was 117-19. So it was unbelievable. And as I think it was, I know the conductor who used to come on this show very often as well. I know he was also very strong on them on Twitter. And he just said, "Yeah, thanks very much to whoever that trader is that priced up that game," because just always it was kind of weird as well, because the money came for it, and then suddenly it started shortening to like back to 15, and you're thinking to yourself, "What am I missing?" But it was one of those cases where you just put your head down and went and, let's hope that trader's pricing up a few of these games as well. We'll move on to you, though, Pablo, for this one. I don't know if you got on the early line. I certainly missed the boat there, but it has settled at about 17.5. I thought I saw it pop up into the 20s at one point, but I might be wrong. I might have seen another game. What are your thoughts?
I missed this line. I missed this line because I was working Monday morning. But minus 6.5 was golden. Also, when I checked the my account, it was at minus 14, something like that. But I didn't bet because in that moment I didn't know that Saracens will throw the competition. So I did. If I knew that, I would go minus 14.5 because, in my opinion, with that news, I think there's still value in the minus 17.5 because Toulon, they rotated last week against Castres in top 14. They lost by a couple of points, 28-26, but they rotated quite heavily. There was no Fainganuku, Domont, Ran, Serran, Rivans, that what they call in France the cadres, the veterans. So because they were focused in this match, so they will go really, really strong in this match. And with that, and with the Saracens rotation or not interest in the competition, I think Toulon, they can score big because they are scoring really big in top 14. They are like almost 40 points per match in top 14. That's a lot. In top 14, that's a lot of points at home. And they are on average almost 40 points, scoring almost 40 points. I think they are between them and Toulouse. They are the highest scoring teams, the highest scoring teams at home. And if Saracens rotate, that they will do, I think they can put 50 points on them. So overs team for Toulon. Weather will be good. Early kickoff at 1:30. Almost humidity of 50%, 18 degrees, really nice Mediterranean afternoon. So they can score really, really big, like 50 points easily. So minus 17.5 value for me, and also points, team over points Toulon.
I agree totally with you there, Pablo, in the sense that I often find these lines, when the news of the rotation comes out, there's an immediate reaction on the line. But I often don't think that reaction is big enough. And I think this could be another one of those cases where actually, should it actually have moved out maybe even to 27.5 for argument's sake. So, that could definitely be the case. The other thing I'll say, if you're punting on this game, don't panic if Saracens hanging in the early stages. I often find when these sides play, second-string sides, the guys lift themselves for the first 20 minutes of the game. But they're not used to that, or potentially they're not used to it, or they're just not good enough to keep up that pace. And then you often find the home team running away. I think it was one of the French teams played the Sharks early in the season. I think it was Bordeaux. And the Sharks were hanging in there until halftime and then absolutely ran away with it. I could see something similar happening. Yeah. Let's move on to the next game now. It's Castres.
I think you're right about potentially the lines not moving far enough, because I think what happens is that, when bookmakers are taking action from people that, potentially they respect the action, so they'll see the side that is coming on and they'll move the number based on that, or it could just be based on volume. And of course, for most people, in our space, they bet to what they want to bet and then they stop. It's not like they'll just keep filling a position to some unlimited number. Like in the NFL, there'd be people betting 6 figures higher. And as long as they've got a number that they'll like, they'll just keep betting it until the value is gone from it. I don't think that happens in these markets. So it could be absolutely what Pablo's saying, that maybe the true line here should be 30, but people aren't going to bet it up to 30, because they've if they're a recreational bettor, they bet their $20 or $50 or whatever, and they're like, I'm happy, they're not going to keep going. So I think oftentimes these things probably don't go far enough. And thinking about some of the bets that you guys are just saying, potentially, I guess you take a bunch of alt lines as well, and take alt lines and combine them into sort of like a same game parlay or a multi or something, right? You could actually get some sort of jumbo payout if they do win by, let's say, 40 or something, which is a possibility.
Yes. No, 100%. I'm just laughing because I've thought of a few times, and I'm not necessarily there's been times where I've spotted the early value, and minus 6.5 for argument's sake, to take this example, and I pile into it, and then the bookies move it to 8.5, and I'm going obviously other people have piled into it as well, but I almost take offense, it should have moved more, so then I'll end up taking more and more. I had one disastrous game once where I did that on the Lions, And all of the handicaps missed. But anyway, I take your point 100%. And I think that's very much why the line doesn't always move that much. Let's move on to the next game. Leinster up against Harlequins. Leinster, of course, coming off that win with a very much a weakened side against Sharks last week, 10-7 in Durban. They play the Quins, and here we got a pretty big handicap, Pablo, minus 20.5 Leinster.
Heart suggests Leinster, but head suggests Harlequins, because my numbers say that Harlequins, they are performing well at away this season. They are playing well. They are having good results in the Premiership away from home. But Leinster is like, it's a big animal. I think bigger animal than the Premiership, than the other Premiership teams. My number suggests that Leicester should be favorites, but only 10 points. But I think that my numbers are wrong here, because Leicester they can reach that handicap. But when I have these doubts, you can see my face that I prefer not to bet. For me, it's no bet.
And it's good to call a no bet, Summers, particularly when there's so many matches on the weekend. It's better not to get involved in everything. Anything on this game for you, Nathan?
No, not particularly. I guess when I look at it, I think, what's the incentive for Leinster to run up a big score? That's the only thing, right? Like, once they've kind of got the game in the bag and they've qualified, there's potential for them to start putting guys on the bench and looking ahead, and Harlequins are the kind of team that could easily backdoor like a couple of tries late in cover. So, I wouldn't be jumping all over 20.5 at the minus for sure.
Right, back to Pablo for this one. It's Castres up against Benetton. Here we got a handicap minus 8.5 of the home team, Pablo.
Here my numbers suggest that the handicap are well set, but after saying this, I don't think Castres are really interested in this competition, even if they are in the knockouts, because Castres are never interested in the Champions Cup. I cannot. There's no explanation why they are in the knockouts playing at home. Why they finished second in the log in their group, but they are here. But I think they are still not interested in this competition, because Castres. They is the team, maybe the only team in France that is not interested in Champions Cup. They are only interested in the top 14, playing the playoffs and trying to win the top 14 that they did like twice in the last 10 years. And that's big numbers for a team for like Castres. So I think they are not interested in this competition, but I prefer to see the lineups. Benetton will go for this. They should go for this. I think they have a chance to win at Castres, but it's very difficult to win there. I think in the last 35 matches that Castres play at home, they only lost twice or 3 times. So it's not easy to win there. With the numbers, for me, the handicap is well set. So no bet for the moment.
Yeah, well, listening to you there, possibly a no bet, but maybe keep an eye on things. This could be perhaps one of the rare, maybe this is the sort of game where Benetton could potentially upset. But I do enjoy it, Nathan, when Pablo says, and I agree with him 100%, certain teams are just not interested in the competition, as bizarre as it sounds. But you kind of wonder, how does that message get through to the players? Does the manager stand up there and say, hey, by the way, guys, we're not really interested this week? Or is it more just by the actions, and is it some ingrained culture in the club? Because there are just some clubs who, they've got different priorities.
Yeah, I think it's never, well, my view, it would never be explicit, right? Like you just look at the teams that you've picked, and they would be telling these guys that, this is your opportunity, like we're not trying to lose the game. We're trying to give you an opportunity to show what you've got, So that when they talk about, like, in American sports, they say that, like, players don't tank. but organizations do. Like they just put teams in positions where they're unlikely to win, because they're going after draft picks or something. But players are playing for contracts; they'll still play hard. But the reality is, some of them they're just not good enough.
And tell me something. I can't. My memory might not be right on this one. Was Castres the team that beat Saracens away from home when they were like 26-point underdogs at the end of the group stages? Because Pablo, you're nodding on that one, eh? Because I tell you what, I mean, just to that point exactly. I mean, they played a weakened side, what looked like a weakened side against Saracens. I mean, Saracens were backed off the boards. I think they started minus 30.5, and they lost the game at home to Castres. And to Nathan's point there, Pablo, I mean, Castres could pick a B side here, but if their B side are capable of beating Saracens on the road, maybe even though the club itself is not that interested, the players that they put out on the field are. Is it one of those things where even if they put out a weakened side, they can probably still take Benetton?
Yeah. I mean, for me, Castres is one of the top trolling team. Well, one of the top, like with the Sharks, is one of the top trolling teams, because, like you said, they went to London with a B, almost a C string, and they won. And they defeated Munster at home, but as I said, winning in Castres is really difficult. Like in the last 20 matches, I was checking the last 20 home matches for Castres. They only lost once against Bordeaux in the beginning of this season. But even with a B team, they can win. They can defeat Benetton easily. So I'm not sure. I think they will feel a B team, but it's a dangerous team as well. They can win by 30 or lose by 30. So no bet for me.
I was going to say, it's all adding up to a no bet on that. And we'll stick with you, La Rochelle, up against Munster. From what I've seen on the forum, there's been a bit of money for Munster. La Rochelle minus 7.5. I think there was some potentially plus 8.5 Munster there. Matt, Pablo, have you got involved in this one yet?
Yeah, I put 2 units in Munster plus 8.5. It was at plus 7.5, but when I checked, it was at plus 8.5. So I fired there 2 units. For me, La Rochelle should be slightly favorites. They are in a really disappointing season. I mean, they are playing really bad. Stats are really bad. They are underperforming. They are almost they are playing for relegation, not for playoffs. They are in the middle of between relegation and playoffs, but the way they playing suggests that they are more focused on not being relegated. Even for La Rochelle, that sounds really weird, because there's still players like Antonio Aldred, Boudin, Dante, and they are I don't know, like 4 points below the playoff. That's really disappointing for them. They draw against Castres 2 weeks ago when they were really strong. They lost last week in Clermont with not a big team, but they rotated a little bit. In Clermont, they lost by, if I remember correctly, by 14 points or 15 points against a Clermont team that lost the 5 previous matches. So they lost in Clermont against a team that were playing really bad and losing 5 weeks in a row. I read that Boudin and Dante are injured, so they won't play. Big absence for me for La Rochelle, and I think Munster, they are up for this. They can win this. They are a Champions Cup team, and for me, medium confidence on Munster plus 8.5.
I must say, Nathan, I never really had much of a view on this game, but after listening to Pablo there, I'm very much in the Munster camp. How about you?
Yeah, like it's all makes a lot of sense to me. Sounds pretty logical. Yeah, and it's yeah. I mean, but based on all that, I mean, and knowing what we know about Munster and their pedigree, like that, I've sort of mentioned it in the past. They're the kind of team that sort of turn it on when it matters. They can be pretty much kind of bog average for large parts of the season, and then they just find another gear at the right time, because I think they've just been there every year, know what it takes.
100%. Let's go on to the next game. I'll get your comments on this quickly, because you did say you took the early minus 6.5. Glasgow, I think we're on to 8.5. once again, this is a line you just had a bit of a gut feel on there, Nathan, that it was a little bit low.
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, it opened up at 6.5, and again, it's just based on the kind of, I think the discrepancy between the quality of the Premiership at the moment, which like I kind of have my doubts about, and how good Glasgow are. Like, you know, they're almost the Scottish national team, really. Like, you know, and I'd watched them the week before against the Lions, which was, you know, kind of a ridiculous game because I think it was like 42 points in the first half or something, and it wasn't even a particularly strong Glasgow team. You know, like they've just got really good depth. They're a really good team. They're the current URC champions. I think they probably just deserve a bit more respect, really.
And are you giving them that respect, Pablo? What are your thoughts on the handicap?
For me, nothing yet. But I missed that -6 as well. Because when no bet 365 open lines, I'm working, so impossible for me. My prediction suggests that Leicester can be close to Glasgow, but if you see Glasgow matches at home, last week as you said, they demolished the Lions by the 42-0. That, I mean, after that match, they demolished the Lions, not with a big team, but with a lot of absence.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't the strongest team they can field, so because they were focused in this match. Not sure about Leicester because it's really irregular as well. They won in Northampton 33-0 the week before, and they lost last week at home against the Saracens 22-29. So for me, that's, I mean, being that irregular, I cannot trust you if you are that irregular. So if I had to bet here, I would go Glasgow, but not now, because at -9, -10, that is now the line, I cannot see value on them. But maybe overs, because I think they can score around 30 points, and I think the line will be in the mid-40s, not even 50. I think they can score above 50 points between both teams.
Right, so looking at overs there on that one, Pablo, I'm going to stick with you. We're getting on to Sunday's fixtures now. This game taking place at 1:30 on Sunday. There's been quite a bit of betting activity in this one. We got Bordeaux up against Ulster, and I've seen some conflicting reports here. Well, not really conflicting, but we've got Bordeaux potentially missing a couple of players, but Ulster as well. We've got a handicap here now, Pablo, of -24.5.
Yeah, and here I have a conflict as well, because Bordeaux, they will miss some important players. Gazzotti, De Grey, Deporter, BLBRA, he's on vacation. And Jalibert, it's still doubt. I don't know if he will play, because he's still doubt. And I think another player is Rochelle. It's still doubt because I think he was knocked last week against Racing. But Ulster, they have a couple of absence as well, big absence, because Ulster backline is pretty tasty, but not the forward pack. Not sure, because even without those absence, even with if Jalibert plays, Bordeaux can win really, really big. So it depends if Jalibert is fit or not. If Jalibert is not fit, I would go with Ulster +24 if it's possible, because if when lineups will be released, line will move quickly if Jalibert doesn't play. Sorry. What I think here is that this match is potentially really over match. They can score 60 points between those teams easily. Depends on the weather. I didn't check weather yet, but it's early kickoff at 1:30. If weather is okay in Bordeaux, 60 points, 65, no problem.
Just to let you know, I just checked this. This is probably, I think it was this morning that I checked the weather. It looks fairly good, but maybe a little bit of a wind about, but definitely could be a game for points, this one. And unfortunately, you've probably got to be handy when the team selections come out in order to move quick enough. Let's go on now, Nathan, unless you've got anything on that one. We'll go on to the last game. It's Toulouse against the Sale Sharks. And here we got a handicap. Pablo, I'll go to you here. Another big one, minus 23.5. This is Sunday's 4 o'clock kickoff South Africa time. And of course, by this stage, you're either well up or well down. Either way, you're getting involved. Pablo, what have you got?
That's only an opinion. I think Sale won't go strong because they are in the fight for Premiership playoffs. They are still in the fight. They are only 4 points or 5 points below the playoff. And visiting Toulouse is never easy. I don't know what you see. Last week they demolished Pau. Pau is not a bad team in top 14, and they lost by 45 points. They demolished them especially in the second half. Toulouse will go as strong as possible. I think there's no Dupont still. He's still injured, but they don't care. If weather is good, they can score 60 points on Sale Sharks, no problem. So for me, it's overs match or overs Toulouse. Even if Sale goes strong, they can score 60.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you from what I've seen of Toulouse. The weather does look like being good. And Nathan, just coming to you quickly, I mean, you mentioned something about a bet builder sort of in a game with alternative handicaps. This could also be the sort of weekend where you want to maybe take 3 of these big handicaps and take sort of minus 35 on all 3 or something like that. I'm thinking of like Toulon, potentially, well, maybe not Leinster. I kind of agree with your comment there that Leinster may not put it away, but maybe the 3 French sides, Toulon, Bordeaux, and Toulouse, take big handicaps and get yourself a nice 20 or 30 to 1 play. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like maybe the Bordeaux one is the one to question potentially, but yeah, just load it in. And in this game is what the last chance to learn. So whatever you're doing, you're probably putting 10 times your normal unit size on here to try and win back everything that you've lost. So
discipline, fun.
That's just smart betting. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, 100%. Right, James, it brings us to the end of quite a marathon show. Thoroughly enjoyed the chat. Not a lot of live comments. I don't know. Sometimes we do have some technical problems because we've got a lot of live viewers. I do see now a few comments have come through. Let's have a look. It's just it's old. It hasn't been a comment actually for quite a while. So hopefully there hasn't been any technical issues there. But let's wrap things up then as far as the weekend's rugby goes. And Pablo, I'll start with you. What are your sort of strongest plays for the weekends or games that you're potentially looking out for?
My best bets?
Yes.
Munster plus 8.5, sorry.
Okay.
Fiji and Drua plus 5.5. And also, and I can still believe myself, over 58.5 in Perth. I like that. Okay. I love the risk. And that's the one I already done. But I'm leaning on Toulon overs and Stade Toulousain overs. I think they can put big scores on Saracens and Sharks. And in Challenge Cup, depends on the line, of course. The over in Lyon against Sharks, and also I think Bath they can score big against Pau. They go strong even despite the absence, the rotation they do. But Pau second string, I think they against Pau second string, I think Bath they can score 40 points, 45 points, with no problem.
Well, all I can say, Pablo, is get some good sleep tonight because it doesn't sound like you're going to be getting much rest over the weekend with all of this rugby, that's for sure. And Nathan, you sum up your weekend for us here in terms of what you're looking forward to and your best plays?
Yeah, I think there's I said like a lot of kind of interesting coin flip type games coming up in Super Rugby, and so based on current market numbers, I think Hurricanes plus 4.5 and Drua plus 3.5. As I said, coin flip games. I'll take the plus on both of those.
Excellent. And if you are watching the show live for the first time, I see we've got quite a few watching on X at the moment. Then hit the bell button and you'll get notified when it goes live on my Twitter feed. Alternatively, if you're on YouTube, hit the subscribe button and the like button. It does help the channel a lot. That brings us to the end of the show. I will be sending out my newsletter tomorrow. I had a bit of a shocker last week. I got my main bet of the weekend was actually over 49.5 at Loftus. I even loaded my accounts up for that one, so it ended up okay. But then I lost confidence when the line went to 57 and switched to the Sharks game, which was, of course, something of a disaster as far as the overs points go. But thanks everyone for joining us. Thanks to the guys who watched live and commented on the chat early in the show. I'll be interested to see if there was any technical issue because we haven't had a best bet, or maybe it's coming in now. Let's see if Johan is. I see there has been a comment come through. Here we go. Johan, you've just proven me wrong. There's no technical issues. We got your treble. Chiefs over 33.5. Toulouse minus 23.5 and over 59.5 in the fourth match. Southpaw, you've got plenty of supporters there. That bet coming at 11-2. Thanks everyone for joining us. We'll see you next week for the handicap. Rugby chat that matters.